it's very hard to learn a ton of lessons when you're 19 years old. The mindset that I had when I was 19 years old and going to the Olympics was, I'm going to make another Olympics. This is just one step in a large part of my career. And I'm just going to be the greatest fencer of all time. And then you realize you're not 19 years old anymore. And then you become an alternate to other teams. And you learn that maybe you should have taken the moment to realize that what you've done is pretty spectacular and that you should have maybe been in the moment a little bit more. But it's hard when you're 19 years old. You think your life continues forever, et cetera, et cetera. I am a performance coach now. And I study a lot about peak performance and sustaining performance and what success means and having purpose and meaning as part of that success, what motivates us, what drives us. So I think for me, a lot of the lessons I've learned since then, I can connect back to my past. I think one of the biggest things that I'm learning now, how to sustain performance and what does success mean. So a lot of it means a little bit of understanding of self-awareness of how you work, and that growth happens with rest, and having intentionality around both work and rest are very, very important. As an athlete, I never really rested. Ann Marsh, who's my teammate on the 2000 Olympic team, she bought me a t-shirt. She was in medical school at the time, and she buys me this t-shirt. I practice while you sleep. And at the time, that was like such a cool identity. And what's reinforced is like, yeah, I'm going to practice when everyone else sleeps. I'm going to be the best. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to just keep on training and keep on training. When you're 15, that works okay because you're like a rubber band and you can snap back pretty fast. But I've had 3 knee surgeries. I've had a hip replacement at, let's say, 34 years old. And I think it's really important that what we hold up as success when someone is practicing while someone else sleeps is actually not the paradigm of success. And I think you could see throughout my career as I got older how much more difficult that was for me to sustain. I think the athletes now are much smarter about training, but I can see it. I mean, in high performers, they often do not want to give themselves permission to take a break. In 2004, when they allowed women to fence saber, one of the things that I wish I had enough opportunity or mindset to do is to make and adapt to that and actually become a saber fencer. A lot of my foil fencing was very strong. I use this as an example for actually clients that I work with now, is I think we get very, very stuck in, well, that's how I've always done it. I'm very successful at just this. This is it. This is it. This box. I live here. This is the box I'm comfortable in. And I think it would have taken a big leap for me to do saber. But at the same time, I think people that can be like, you know what, maybe if you just tried this and adapt it, you could maybe see that the future is a little bit different. So I would have loved to actually transition to that, but I didn't know I wasn't going to make the team in 2004. But one of the things I've worked with some sports psychologists and actually some mentor performance coach, he said, Iris, it's okay, want things to be in a box, but sometimes you can soften the edges. So I think that's the point. It's not happening for me, or if it's not working, I am just going to slam it until it does. And then I'm going to make it work, and I'm going to make everything work, and then I'm going to have all of the hard edges. But I mean, I think one of the secrets to life is, can you make the edges a little bit softer so that you can be a little bit fluid and more dynamic, so that you're not like, well, my only identity is as a fencer and that's how I'm going to live my life and I'm never going to be anything different. And so I think you leave yourself no choice but to go down a path rather than be like, all right, there are tons of options for me. I don't need to be so narrow-minded. And the opposite is true, right? Like sometimes people get overwhelmed with choice. So there is the opposite. But for me, it's very like, I can be very narrow-minded for myself with my goals, that you don't see other opportunities for growth. There is rigidity in structure to fencing. There's a lot of skill base. You spend the first couple of years like, don't parry like this, parry like this. And you're like, okay, well, what's the difference? Like people are really crazy about techniques. So you do have to have that technique down. We've all fenced fencers with little technique and lose to them. They're not going to sustain for the long term, but really the best fencers have studied technique and have very clear technique, but then you improvise from there. Dr. Nat Goodhart's used to always say, technical excellence leads to tactical freedoms. If you know where your parry is going to be, if you know exactly where your feet are going to be, if you know what your distance is, if you know you can count on yourself hitting that target 95 to 99% of the time, then you can be pretty free about the tactical piece. There's a video out there of me taking a lesson with Bucky at one of the coaches' colleges. And you can see, I knew exactly where he was going. My point was exactly where it needed to be. It was hitting the target the same place every single time. The execution of it was flawless. And then if you watch a bout of mine at Junior World Championships, they weren't giving me the touches. They were calling it my hesitation. And I was getting parried. So because I was so much bigger, I could hit to the shoulder. And that was my thing. So when you see that in the bout where I'm trying to go to the shoulder and she's blocking me in 6, right, every single time, and I make up a move. So I go, okay, I'm going to feint to the shoulder. I'm going to do preem to the flank. And if I hadn't had technical excellence and trust that, like, if I'm going to do preem, it's going to hit her right in the flank, I know it, then I wouldn't have had the freedom to say, okay, let's just make this up, because no one's using preem on an attack. It wasn't something that I was taught, but I had the technical excellence and trust and confidence that I could hit the target. So that in the moment I was like, oh, what am I going to do? I'm not getting touches. I'm getting blocked. I've got to figure something out. So you can see those two things as juxtapositions to that. Fencing for me just was fun as a kid. And I think it was a way to be athletic. It was a way to hang out with my friends. It was a way to be like my big sister. So it hit all of those marks for me. And then as you get older, there are different types of purposes. Now you start winning things. You're like, wow, I'm kind of good at this. So you have a little bit of confidence in yourself. How could I be the best fencer that I can be? Because I am doing this really well. And obviously I'm executing it well. So I have the opportunity. And then later on in my career, I think I stopped really enjoying the fencing game. I switched from Bucky to Nat Goodhart's. And she said, what do you like about fencing? She asked me that one day. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I just want to win. Like, you're my coach. We should just win. Like, what's your problem? And she's looking at me like, I can't believe you're 27 years old and not realizing what it is and the meaning of fencing for myself. And at that time, I think that was when I was really losing, was that I was very outcome oriented. I'm only as good as the last win. Come on, Nat. And Nat was like, I was like, what do you like about fencing? What's your problem? And she's like, well, I really like the feel of the weapon in my hand. I was like, that's ridiculous. That's not going to help me win. Like, that's just ridiculous. Like, feel the weapon in the hand. Like, everyone puts a weapon in their hand. I don't know what your problem is. I think at some point when we lose the actual spark of joy and understanding of like the real purpose, and then the outcomes become our real purpose, then we sort of stop growing. Later in my career, Nat asked me to come back to fencing. I had essentially retired after 2004. I just didn't want to do it anymore. Bucky and I had fallen out and we weren't working together anymore. We have a good relationship now. His style of coaching when we were younger, and I've learned since then how to put a name to it. This is something that a lot of coaches get caught in. When you teach someone and you are constantly telling them how to do something, their threshold for success is always what you make of it. And then their confidence and their thresholds for success is always based on you. There's like a really good video in the coaching certification I'm doing. There's one guy who teaches a person how to play golf. And he's like, okay, stand like this, put your foot here. Now it's 90 degrees over here. Hold of the da-da-da. And he's like talking constantly, like, put it over here, da-da-da-da, swing, now stop, now move, now do this, now do that. And the person's like always looking to the coach for like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? So their thinking is outside of themselves. And then there's a juxtaposition to that. There's another coach who doesn't know a ton about golfing. And so he starts in, and actually he's the guy who started the coaching certification that I am part of. And he basically is teaching this woman. He goes, all right, swing. She swings. How do you feel about that? Well, I don't know. It didn't hit the ball. Okay. What do you think we should do next? But then he gives her a little bit, right? He's like, okay, well, let's try your feet like this. Try that. How did that feel? I think I need to turn a little bit. Okay, let's try that. How's that? And I do understand in fencing in the very beginning, it's hard to tell someone like, okay, I want you to sort of find your on guard position. When we are constantly telling the student how to do something, and if we're talking all the time, we then disempower them from their own learning. And then we also give them our threshold of success. You're only going to be as good as me because I'm telling you exactly how I did it. So you're going to do it exactly how I did it without realizing someone else's potential. It's very hard as an athlete to go from 6 years old to 23 years old with somebody that is very prescriptive. On guard like this, parry like this. When she does this, you do that. Do this. When I say this, do that, do this, do that, do this. And so you're always looking for outside confidence, and you're always looking for outside success, and you're always looking for the person to give you value and to tell you, was that good? Okay. Is this good? Okay. And then the problem is then when you switch to someone like Nat Goodhart's, she's like, hey, how do you feel about that? I'm like, I don't know. How do you feel about that? Was it good? You should tell me because you're the coach. Tell me that it's good. She's like, I don't know. Like, did you hit the target? What's your threshold of good? And it was very hard for me to switch to that coach because I never trusted my personal thought process. It was always an external thought process. I think being older, I needed a little bit more time, not just 2 years, working with someone like Nat to start to feel more comfortable and confident without having the pressure of making an Olympic team. I feel like I could have done more, but also at the time my hip was getting worse. It was a whole combination of things, but I definitely think the latter part of my career was much more difficult, but I definitely learned a lot more that brings me to where I am now. My whole identity from the time I was 6 years old till I was about 27, even longer because we owned a fencing club, it was of being a fencer. If I were to say to you, what is the greatest gift I've ever gotten from the sport of fencing? It was people. I grew up with seriously accomplished and seriously smart women from the age of like 12 till I was probably 19, that I had the top 10 women in the country all training in Rochester together for years. And I had the opportunity to travel and be with these women and also gain wisdom and knowledge from them. And I'm a mom now to 2 women. And I'm like, man, I would love to be able to find something for my daughters to be hanging out with some really amazing people. It colors how my life is. It colors who I am. I don't ever think women can't do anything because I only saw women who did everything. It's really an important thing. Who you grow up with and who you surround yourself with is really important. These women were everything to me, and these women continue to be everything to me. And the sport continues to be everything to me because when I was a kid, I was super introverted and awkward and really had no friends at school. But when I went to the fencing club, it felt like I was a totally different person. A lot of confidence, people in my corner, teammates, friends. And that was my social network and group. And when I walked into the doors of school, I was definitely the opposite person. For me, fencing was all of that. And people are the most important part of that. And the greatest amount of wisdom I got from these women is you can be the greatest athlete that you can be. You can strive to be at your best. But if you don't have the support of others, you will only go so far. And so these women taught me the importance of team and how the good of everyone is the good for everyone, right? Like what we do as together is the most important thing, more important than what you're going to do individually. And so my wins are because I fence with these women. And I think now more than ever, that's an important note. What's happening in our world right now is between the race riots and COVID, I think it's important to understand that we are one of many, and we are a team of people. And I think there's a subtlety to that. I think we forget. My husband always says people are really motivated for personal reasons always. And I am set so hardcore into we do things together because it makes us stronger, that it's really hard for me to ever see that. In my professional life, someone came to me and was like, well, if you just take this job from this person, you'll do it better. And you should just say that you're going to do it better and just lead the charge. The person I work with is my teammate, and I will not take something from him because someone else thinks they're not doing a good job. That's not who I am. I will do what I can to support them. And if that person and I decide that it's better that I take a lead on something, then that's a decision we make, and then we do it together and help each other. Trust is earned and built. What I do expect is respect. And what I do expect is that we build that relationship of respect. And everyone has different ways in which they feel respected. People feel renegade and rogue, but I'd rather start with empathy of like, I wonder why they think that. I wonder why they said that. This person is really like mired in their own thoughts, and they're really in their own world. And I'm just like one small piece of that. You know, what they're doing is really kind of making me upset. But maybe if I take a second and think about like what's happening in their world and why are they thinking that way, and take a moment of empathy, then I won't hold on to it so hard. Not like, oh my God, I'm taking it so personally. They feel and are a different way, and maybe something is mixing it up to be that way. And if they are close to me and they're a teammate of mine, I think it's important for me to actually create that bond and trust and relationship.